on a project called Caterpillars Count, which Alan developed, and Bucky and I worked on helping to expand its use across the state of North Carolina, originally for scientific purposes, I think largely. But over time, we started to realize what a great tool this was. And I thought, well, you know, we're doing this at multiple different institutions. We should actually assess the learning outcomes that students are gaining through this experience. And so that kind of started us along this path. And over time, the three of us are PIs on a research coordination network, which is devoted to creating a community of practice of instructors and citizen science staff and others who have an interest in the use of citizen science in post-secondary education. And so we're happy to have you here today. And one of the things that we try and do is just offer up advice and suggestions and sounding boards for people who have questions and interest in using this. So we're happy to have you here today. So why don't we just start with Julie? You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I am jointly appointed at the Museum of Natural Sciences in downtown Raleigh and at North Carolina Central University in Durham, which is a historically Black university. And I got interested in citizen science because I have a couple of citizen science projects of my own. So I study both skin microbiome and I also study monkey health. And so I have a project on Zooniverse that people can connect with, you know, from anywhere in the world. And then I also have projects that are more local to the museum and NC Central, where I actually recruit people and collect skin microbes from them and try to connect that to their health. And so I've, you know, really tried to engage the public and students in a lot of my research. And I'm interested in expanding and trying to engage, you know, a broader audience in some of these topics. So I'm kind of looking for ideas of how to incorporate new ideas into maybe some of my teaching as well as some of my projects.
Great. Okay, so let's go with, I guess, Maria, your microbiology.
Thanks. I'm Maria Davis, and I'm from the University of Regina, which is in Saskatchewan, Canada. And I am new to citizen science. It sounds like a very interesting way to interact or get students engaged and doing work from not necessarily on campus, which is something that I've been thinking about, getting students being able to work with data more than they get the chance to. And if we can do or create a distance lab in that form. So yes, I'm completely new. I'm looking to learn things, how to set a project up and how I could go about doing that. And yeah, being part of the network and contributing and maybe even taking up some initiatives that have already been started to begin with.
All right, fabulous. I like to get up and go. Let's go ahead and pop down to Alan, who just came in.
Hey, everybody. Sorry, I was having technical difficulties, as one does these days. I am Alan Hurlbert. I am a professor of biology at UNC Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And I also started a citizen science project called Caterpillars Count, which is about monitoring the abundance and phenology of bugs on branches, basically, especially as it relates to food availability for birds. So we have been, or our project has been used in 6 to 10 university classes throughout mostly the Eastern US. And yeah, I'm happy to I don't know, give my take as a citizen science project manager and seeing how, you know, an example of how that project was put into a intro ecology evolution class at UNC.
Cool. Well, we seem to be getting a few more people to be popping in right now. So I think we'll do you 4 introductions, the last 4 people, and then we'll just have you start asking questions and see what we can do to make connections and help you out. All right, so Veronica.
Hi, I'm Veronica Del Bianco. I am a postdoc for the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science, I work with the team there that includes like Kat Stalinsky and Tina Phillips out of Cornell, studying embedded assessment in citizen science. So looking at skills, volunteer skills. So we work with like 15 projects. But then on the side, I have an adjunct and taught intro to environmental science for St. Mary's College in Maryland, and did use some citizen science. It was online, so I had to use online projects to have kind of a lab. So that's been, my background is environmental biology. So I learned about you all last summer and used some of the resources you offered when I was developing this very short 3-week online class. So I'm looking forward to learning more. Oh, and I am actually not located in Maryland. I'm located in New Orleans, Louisiana, which is strange, but I'm a remote postdoc.
That sounds great. I'll take a muffalata, thank you. All right, Mindy.
Hi, I'm Mindy Summers. Can you hear me okay? There's a plane. Okay. Hi, I'm Mindy Summers, and I'm a senior instructor at the University of Calgary. And my research is split about half invertebrate zoology and biodiversity and half education research. And so last summer, I had students in my entomology course use iNaturalist. It was a really fun, exciting project. The students engaged in a very different way in the course, which was exciting. And that really inspired me. We've launched a very small pilot of a Calgary pollinator count project this summer. And we're starting to work with community partners to try to get more involvement in the process. And so I would like students to be engaged in that, as well as bringing in more community partners as well. And I thought this would be a great group to connect with.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think it will be. All right, we'll do David and then end up with Zakia.
Hey, so I'm David Beamer. I'm a biology instructor at Nash Community College, and I've had a number of projects where I'm trying to develop K-12 modules with the idea that they can be rolled out across the state. So it would be sort of, community citizen science kind of work. So like using both genomic data and then field observations.
Okay, I've already got some thoughts that I want to say. It's just about the population of scientists I have here. All right, so Zakia.
So hey everyone, I'm Zakia Leggett. I'm assistant professor at North Carolina State, and I teach a large intro to environmental science course. Hopefully y'all can hear me okay. I'm sitting outside. But within that course, I have incorporated citizen science as an assignment and extra credit. I have not designed my own citizen science project, but I have lots of ideas around doing something like that in the next year. But yeah, happy to be here and learn what everybody else is doing.
All right, great. So Zakia is being a little bit modest here. She's been doing a lot for a long time with citizen science. All right, so my initial thought is I am a little bit surprised because there's so many microbiologists on here. Never really expected that. I kind of thought there would be more people looking for like large scale ecology. I don't know why I thought that. I just did. So a few of you put in some requests inside of the topics interest form that I sent out earlier. And so if you want, we can just go through some of those, or if you have a burning question that you want, we can go ahead and start with that, but it seems like a lot of stuff's kind of nebulous. Does anyone have anything specific that you know that you want to ask? Okay, well, in that case, I have a few slides that I made. And so I'll show you those just to kind of get your mind wrapped around the idea of using citizen science as a teaching tool. That's my email. Let me get off the email. There we go. All right. So this morning I was getting ready and I realized that I've talked about this so much that I needed to just kind of put some things down on a slide. And next thing you know, I'm writing this title, Bringing Cit Sci into Your Classroom, a Practical Guide. And I hated myself for giving myself another project to do. But I'm pretty sure that at some point we just need to have this thing written so we can send it out. So I'm going to give you like the very first thing that popped into my head about using citizen science in your classroom. And it's always to be student focused with this. Every single time that you think about using citizen science, you have to think, how does this benefit the students? And then it's not just in terms of how does it benefit the students, because we can focus so much of what we know and our thought process on the benefits. Oh, it's going to help them learn the scientific method. It's going to help them be more engaged in class. It's something different they've never done before. These are all things that we can recognize. But to my mind, being student focused is not just thinking about the benefits that the students can achieve by doing it, but it's really about thinking the comfort of the students. The way that my teaching has really gone and my teaching philosophy is about breaking down emotional barriers for students first. You break down those emotional barriers, their reservations, and then the learning can happen from them. They can accept more of what you present to them in a positive light. And so that's the way I want you to view the next few things, just that I'm going to be bringing up, that these are all about breaking down some emotional barriers. And I think by far the biggest thing that at least my students don't like to do is waste their time. They have so many classes, they have jobs, that if they can perceive anything that you do in class as wasting time, they're going to have some negative energy for. And so if you can imagine that aura that as they're sitting in the classroom, going from like a nice blue to a red, with blue being good and red being negative, the more negative that is, then the more they're going to shut you out and all your work and your assignments. So the first thing is to make sure your citizen science aligns with the course. That's kind of a duh. Of course you're going to do that, but you need to tell them that. If you can show them exactly how that citizen science project fits in, then they're going to be a lot more relaxed about accepting the project that you have in mind. And you also need to think about the comfort of the students with the project. And this is something that I have learned the hard way. And so I don't want you to have to learn it that way as well. I have presented projects to students where I gave them very minimal information about it. I tried to have them, use their own personal motivation to learn how to do the project and work together as a team to figure it out. And that don't work. No, they like to be handheld because they're afraid of you. They're afraid of making a mistake in your class because you have that power differential of giving them a grade. And so they've been so developed that making a mistake in class is bad, that you need to make sure they're comfortable with how to do that project. And, it's actually more than just their comfort as well. It can also be your comfort. The first time I started doing Alan's project, Caterpillars Count, in my classes, I was terrified that he was getting databases full of just crappy data. But eventually I realized that my students were doing a good job. And it made me feel better knowing that they were comfortable with all of the project. Something else is showing the students that the time that they put in mattered. They hate throwaway assignments, those things that they do just for no reason whatsoever. And so if you can take the data, for instance, that they submitted and then use it to make graphs or use it in calculations of your class, or to show how their data of their group or their personal data differed from everyone else in class. Or I think even a small thing like showing their data on a map in relation to where data was collected everywhere else around the world, or even around the state or your town, it gives them a closer connection to the broader world. And I think all of us would agree that the use of citizen science in class is partly about developing a global community. And so having students be able to know that they did this thing, they spent their time, and what they did contributed, even if only to their classroom community, it makes a big difference to the way that they view that activity. And this thing here, I hate grades. If you want to do citizen science in your classroom and you're not sure how you want to assess it, how you want to assign a grade, don't. Or just give credit. That's all I do. If you feel like you need to give a grade, you just say, fine, you get full credit. If you participate, you get full credit. And to my mind, it takes away a lot of the trepidation that students might have. And I haven't read all the literature, but it seems like that there is a lot of stuff in the literature where not giving grades, period, can not motivate people. But then at the same time, just giving credit makes people not motivated either, because what does it matter? They're there, they get credit. Why should they try? So there is a balance going on between not grading, giving a grade, and doing just credit only grade. So I definitely fall on the line of don't grade, but that's just me. Okay. How do we do this thing? Am I done? I think I'm done. Yeah, there we go. So those are just my initial thoughts on using Cit Sci, kind of put your mind in the right framework. And Zakia made a good comment. Do you have any like a story, Zakia, about the not grading?
Yeah, I think this year, because of COVID, I allowed the students to choose a project on SciStarter. So I usually do a Delphia project where they go across campus and they swab across campus with another partner I have on campus. But we couldn't do that. So I let them choose between, I think it was 3 or 4 projects on SciStarter. And you know, they were just shocked. So we just do the project and we get a grade, but SciStarter has a tool where you can see that the project has been completed. I don't know all the terminology. But anyways, I got a checklist to say this student did a project and this student did a project. But yeah, they were just fascinated. Like, we just get 100 if we choose a project. I'm like, yeah. So they kept looking for a loophole. Some of the feedback I got was that they really enjoyed it. And I think part of it was that kind of free flow of, you know, choose what most interests you out of about 4 different projects and you get 100. It's like, oh, this is easy. It was easy for me too.
I had some that had trouble with that SciStarter, like just logging in though. So I realized how hard, I made an assumption that, especially since we'd all been on a computer for a year at that point this May, that they would have had that ability, but they didn't. So I would have set more time aside to just make sure that they enrolled correctly at the very beginning.
No, that's a good point, because they can't use a nickname. They either had to use their Unity ID or their real name. You know, you couldn't do, you know, boom, boom, whoever, you know, it just had to be where we could figure out who you were. And you're right, Veronica, there were a few students that use nicknames and it became frustrating for my TA. So with SciStarter, you do have to give a little bit of instruction there.
Yeah, so Zakia is talking about the option on SciStarter for lists. And I'm pretty sure that's a universal feature now where you can register you and your university and your class, assign your students different projects on SciStarter, and then they do those projects through this list. And then after that, you do get the information about who did it and who didn't do it. And that would require their university email.
Yeah, I've
had,
always found the more that you can link these, anytime you have to have students log into something that's not like your learning management system, your Canvas or your Blackboard or whatever, Moodle, I find that some small percentage of students can't do this or have some problem for some reason. I mean, they've got like 18, social media accounts, but somehow this is too much or too complicated or something. So I think the more you can put these links inside your course management system, it helps. But somebody will still have a problem.
Mhm. All right. So Julie, you want to get more people involved. So what do you want? Do you want more instructors to use your projects?
That would be one thing. I guess I'm also looking for other projects that I could potentially incorporate into some of my classes, because this last semester, I have this Monkey Health Explorer project on Zooniverse, and I had the students participate in that to try it out. And then I think, like Zakia mentioned, I also said, hey, why don't you go through the other 99 projects on Zooniverse and tell me which other one you think looks interesting and tell me why. And then I had a number of them who really said, oh, that looks really cool. I'm going to come back and do that later. But I did have a lot of students who said, gosh, I don't care. I just chose one. And so, it kind of mattered by the student, but I would like to find some other projects that I could maybe bring into my class, because my class that I currently teach is an evolutionary medicine class. So it definitely has an evolution and science and medicine angle. But there are some other things I could incorporate that I think would be fun if I could bring in 1 or 2 projects and get them to try some new things, build up some skills maybe. If I could find a way to have like a small data set from that project where I could have them do a statistical analysis or something. Something like that, where I'm looking for some other ideas. And I know there are a ton of projects on SciStarter and Zooniverse. Some of them have curriculum attached, but a lot of them don't. And so I don't know if there's actually curriculum out there that other people have developed and they just haven't posted it because they just use it themselves. So I'm also kind of looking for connecting to the community to see if there are other people who have created curriculum content I could borrow or work with them on.
Okay. So I had a few thoughts here. First off, I think that Julie made a really good point that some students aren't going to care. And that even though we think it might be a good thing, you can't get their interest. And so it still hurts me. And I haven't learned how to accept that fact that some people don't like citizen science, but you can't win everybody. That's too bad. So Julie, when you say curriculum, what exactly do you want?
So it could be a number of different things. I think what I want that would help me in my class would be a college level way that I can incorporate a project into one of my classes, or maybe a couple classes where I can make it a project that they work on in a team, so they get kind of collaboration experience. And then also thinking about ways to analyze data or think about data. Because what I did in the past was I actually did a microbiome project where I actually had them think about developing and designing a human skin microbiome project. And then I allowed some of the students to collect samples from themselves and contribute to the project. And then we sequenced it. And at the end of the semester, then they could analyze the data from some of the students and then some other participants. And I felt like some students loved that, but it was a ton of work for me. It was pretty expensive, obviously. And it was also a little bit hard to do that in the time constraints of a semester where I could collect data from them and also get data back to them.
Mm-hmm.
So that wasn't really that useful. So that's why I kind of moved to my Zooniverse project where we already have a lot of it set up. But if I could have a project where I could set it up, so maybe the caterpillars count, for example, could I have, connect with Alan and some of the other folks and say, hey, could you give me a sample set where I could have my students work with this sample set? Because I think one of the things that my students don't appreciate is they contribute to this project, but they don't see where their results go, right? They don't see the data usually. And so is there a way that there are some projects where I could get some data back so that I could give the students data and say, you contributed to maybe the larger project, and maybe this doesn't have your exact data analysis here, but you could kind of see that other people have contributed and now you're analyzing other people's data. And in the future, other people will analyze the data you collected. Something like that, where I could give them some data and have them analyze it. And so then it would help me if whoever created that project could say, well, here is the raw data. Here are some questions you could have the students ask, and then here's how you could analyze it.
Mhm.
So something like that, where it was a project that I could do that wouldn't take the whole semester, it would maybe be an assignment, but it was kind of already structured and I could fit it in.
Okay, I wonder if we can make some connections with projects, and we can just have a sample data set downloaded from several different disciplines.
Yeah, so I will say that one of this research coordination network that I referenced earlier, and I did put that you can access some resources through that network in the chat here, the Use Cit Sci network. One of the things that we're hoping to do is help catalog some of these resources that are already out there and help direct people to where they are located. And we're just getting to that beginning stages. So we don't have, it's certainly not extensive on our website yet, but that is one of the things we're doing. And I will say, like on the educator pages of SciStarter, some of the projects have like exact kind of lesson plans. Zooniverse may as well. I'm not as familiar with that side, but there's also other places that I've stumbled upon it. So Course Source is a peer-reviewed outlet for people to publish kind of like lesson plan sorts of things. And I stumbled upon one yesterday in there, I think it was yesterday. And so I just put that in the chat. So there are, if you kind of look in some of these digital curriculum resources, like the Ecological Society of America has one, you know, of different lessons and such, you can come across those, but we are making an effort to try and compile these as well and get them out to people.
I think that would be great. I appreciate that because I think there's a lot out there, but it's also hard to sift through because for SciStarter, you have to go to the project and then look to see what they have. And a lot of times it'll be like a K through 12 and it doesn't really apply to my, you know, college students, things like that. So it's a lot of work in that sense. So yeah, if there were a place that's compiled, I think that would be a valuable resource.
I understand that SciStarter, and I haven't used this too much recently, but they've added a new sets of filters so that you can actually do searches by like, you know, by level. So higher ed only, for example, post-secondary. And you can actually even select which ones have curricular resources available. But what I don't know is how smart that is. Like, so if it's something that's, if it's a project that would be applicable to higher ed, but the curricular material is for K-12, does it come up if you click both of those, or is it smart enough to know that you want curricular materials for higher ed? That I don't know, but they are, I know, trying to improve the filters for that very reason.
So how can we help you guys get started? Or what do you need?
I think listening, that it would be interesting if there people could say what courses they've taught and what citizen science projects they've used in those courses. I would say successfully and unsuccessfully. Like even if it was just a little list so that if you were thinking about it, you could reach out directly to that person and ask a few questions. I think that could be a helpful way of a network. When I think of network, I think resources are great, but I think networking more of people.
Which reminds me, Veronica, I did a little bit of pre-gaming here in the chat. And at the very tippy top of the chat, there's 3 different links. One is to the Use Cit Sci network to join. One is the regular page if you guys haven't done that already. But the very top one is for a Google Sheets for you guys just to insert your contact information so that, can you see that actually?
I was just going to say, nobody can see that because no one had joined yet. So you will see the chat starting when you joined the thing. So you'll have to put all those in.
There we go. Oh, did I just mess? See if those work. Got it? Okay, yeah, so the other one is about contact info. So we all can just get in touch with one another as we need to. All right, let's see. Oh yeah, Mindy.
I had a question about kind of having students interact with the other community members on citizen science platforms. So for example, on iNaturalist, I found that, the majority of interactions that students had with other members of the iNaturalist community were positive, and they really appreciated that. But we did have some negative experiences from experts on the platform in the way that they were talking to students at different parts, like at different points in the course. And so I did have to kind of come in and have discussions and conversations about that. And I was wondering if just other people have ideas or suggestions or similar experiences with kind of how to manage those types of dynamics when things start going outside of your course.
Anyone?
I don't have that experience, but that's pretty sad to hear. Because I think about students, if that's their first experience and that happens, that's pretty frustrating. I'm just curious, was it experts that were kicking in saying they were wrong maybe?
So it was experts saying very unhelpful things. And it was also experts that were unfortunately directing their comments at certain demographics in our class as well. So it was really perpetuating some really negative things. But like just unhelpful things like on iNaturalist, if you're out in the field and you're taking pictures, like sometimes things upload and the pictures, and then they wait till they get home to like re-upload. And like in the time that students were getting home to upload additional ones, people were like, we had one expert that I actually had to reach out to, in different ways. We're saying things like, if you're going to take a bad photo, don't even bother, like, don't even bother being on this platform. What? Like these, like, you don't belong here type statements to students. So we had to have multiple kind of group discussions about, the goals of iNaturalist and what it's trying to do. And unfortunately, some of the like legacy aspects of entomology and how people talk to each other sometimes is really not appropriate or inclusive. But yeah, we just had some problems like that, which were new.
Yeah, I will say I have not used the public platforms, and even with SciStarter this year, I was a little hesitant. Nobody said anything, and I didn't ask any questions because they did a crowd the tap. That was one of their options, and with that, they do it at their home, and I think they might enter their home address or a GPS point or something. And so I was a little bit concerned about, am I breaking privacy issues? I didn't ask NC State, but I do wonder about some of the public platforms, like what you suggested with iNaturalist, and not being able to have that control or containment. But I also feel like by doing iNaturalist, they get to be part of the quote unquote masses. So I can see the benefit to both, to doing the smaller projects where you can kind of keep your hands on it, versus the ones where they do get to interact with nice scientists. So I don't know, I've never heard of that before. I did have a colleague who used iNaturalist and it crashed on him because everybody was using it at one time. But I don't think he had any negative experiences with it. So that's really disheartening.
That's what I used this year, iNaturalist, and I didn't have any of those experiences at all. But I did at the very beginning, they have a privacy on there where you can blur, you don't have to give your exact location, you can give like a neighborhood, and it's just a more mile radius or something. And so we did talk about the privacy and have them change their settings to what they were comfortable with at the very beginning.
I've heard of some instructors too who create one or more kind of generic accounts, and you can assign students a generic account that they enter data in. So it depends on how you want to track them. You would either have to create a different, like a generic account for every person that's a made up name and all that. Or if you didn't need to track the exact, contributions of each individual, you could do, one per group or one per class even, and have them all enter through that, so that it's not actually giving up any data about them. But that's one way that I have heard that people deal with that, especially on iNaturalist.
So I put in the chat the name Colleen Hitchcock with her email. She's at Brandeis University and uses iNaturalist all the time. And I think if she's not in charge of, she is one of the people in charge of the Boston BioBlitz, I believe. And so she would be a great person to ask if she's had any kind of experience with this, and just sweet as the day is long. She's great.
And I'll say too, I know for sure there is a paper about the use of iNaturalist in at three different universities that will be coming out in there's a special collection from the journal Citizen Science Theory and Practice that'll be coming out this winter. And one of those and so all of the papers in this special collection are about the use of citizen science in higher ed from one aspect or another. And I know one of them that has been accepted to that special collection from Colleen is Hitchcock is about the use of iNaturalist in different classes. And so you can check out that special collection once it becomes available, and I'll email anybody who's associated with the network at that point to alert people.
I'll just chime in, and not that useful, but so our project Caterpillars Count interfaces with iNaturalist. So with our app, we send photos there. And so we've had about 10,000 observations through our project get sent to iNaturalist. And sometimes the participants, whether they're students or someone else, they send a picture of a blurry leaf that you can't see anything. And people do chime in on that. And oftentimes, I mean, I guess what I've seen most commonly is just, where's the fly? I don't see it. I can see how sometimes those comments might come across as rude, but hopefully, all we can do, I think, or my experience is that it's a tiny minority. Obviously, it's happened in your class, which sucks. It sounds like you handled it the way I would handle it, so I don't have any additional advice for you. I've heard of other class projects where the class edits a Wikipedia page, or even using eBird. eBird reviewers often get persnickety when someone accidentally suggests a really rare bird. So I think it's there's just this tail of a distribution of like some small percent of the time that might happen, and it's really unfortunate. I think, like I said, I think it sounds like you handled it the best way you can, which is like maybe direct message the person if you can and say, hey, these are students, try to be forgiving, but.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, iNaturalist was also very supportive because I wrote into them at different time points. But yeah, we definitely were having a lot of conversations in our class because, is it worth it if one student is feeling like they don't belong in the scientific community? Like if they walk out of the class and they have that feeling, is it worth doing? And, yeah, it was a very weird experience. And especially like some of the experts, they would just be spelling students' names completely wrong when they were yelling at them. And, it was gross and uncomfortable at different times. But I think we have a lot of students who wanted to continue using the platform afterwards. And some students did say that they appreciated going through that experience in a community group where we were able to say, like, none of this is okay. And we need more people like you on this platform being positive, and here's how you engage with people positively to swamp out this weird distribution of the few people who are going to act like that on it. But yeah, it definitely has me thinking about ways to protect students in the future.
And student privacy is something that is brought up all the time whenever we talk about it. And SciStarter itself does consider privacy to be a big issue. So you're right, Mindy, and everyone else, you got to think about it. Where is their info going to go? So shall we talk about what Veronica wanted, how we used citizen science in class? Okay. So I think, Julie, did you want to add anything else about how you do it?
Not really sure what all I could add. I mean, like I said, I focused on my own project in that sense because I was teaching and I knew my project well. And I would like to find some other projects maybe where I could connect with the a researcher, because I think that would be fun to maybe have them come to class and talk about the project because they'll be really excited about it. So that part of the connecting people might be a fun way to engage the researcher as well as their project. And that maybe would get the students more excited too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thought I have.
Okay. Zakia?
Yeah, I think, are we going back to how we're using the citizen science in our courses and which projects?
Yes.
Yeah, so I have used Delphia, a project with a colleague across campus that has a sister or brother or cousin class where my class does the sampling and then that class does the analysis. So it's I want to say it's a biotechnology course. And so I think someone mentioned earlier, I can't remember who, the really cool piece was being able to collect the data set and then come back and show the students and say, hey, these are the points where we found this fancy microbe that poops gold, right? And so we had like a heat map and they were able to see how they contributed to the project. So that was really beneficial. And I think Carlos Galler, the professor that's working on that, is hoping to expand that where it can be open to others. As far as this year, we had probably maybe 80% of the students do Crowd the Tap, and that's led by Karen Cooper. And that was a really simplistic project to do with a large group of students, where they just did the old school where you dip the dipstick in your water and you read the different colors to look at lead levels and other particulates within the water. And so the students, again, were able to do that very quickly. And they were able to get information about their water. There were a few people that were in rural Eastern North Carolina and were shocked that, oh, my well water has, more blank than I thought. So I think students really enjoyed that. And if I had to do it again, I probably would limit it from 4 projects to maybe 1 or 2, because it makes it easier to dialogue and kind of get feedback after they've completed the project. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
And these were all in your intro to environmental class?
These were all in the intro to environmental class. Yep. So there were a few people that chose a project where they did not have to do any sampling. It was more computer-based or survey-based. And I did that purposely because I did get complaints from students that they did not want to do the water testing at home. I had the assumption that I would get most people, but like I said, we had about 20% that decided to do something else.
Interesting. Mindy, can we have a little bit of info how you did in your class?
Yeah, so I partnered with the city of Calgary. So we were able to get permits for the different parks throughout the city. And so because the course was entirely online in the fall, students then were able to go out and sample insects. They were both doing physical collections as well as the digital collections for iNaturalist, and we tried both last year. And then they essentially did their whole insect collection prep at home. So the fun thing about the project was many of them ended up taking out family members and friends with them in the field, which they otherwise wouldn't have. They were kind of going out with anyone they were quarantining with. And so, yeah, the course produced a lot of new records for iNaturalist, and then we kind of created the first inventory for the city that we provided back in terms of insects. So the city previously had lots of information on mammals and plants, but nothing on insects. So we produced that report as part of the course. And then, yeah, to get more people involved, the one thing that I got feedback from students is not all students were really feeling comfortable having to catch and kill insects in the course, particularly from different cultural and religious backgrounds. So the project that I kind of piloted this summer is based on the UK Biomonitoring Institute's pollinator count project. So it's essentially a timed quadrat count that they can do, as well as the photography. So we're working on those 2 things to be able to launch them next year as an option for students in the course.
Wow, neat. I'm really curious. Do you guys up in Canada have a very limited time to which you can do outdoor citizen science projects?
Yes, very limited. And so it makes it a little hard for students. Last year, like I tried to get them all started actually at the beginning of summer, even though it was for a fall course, because yeah, some years it will snow here September 13th, which is the first week of lab courses for us. So it's a very narrow window. You can find insects in the winter, but it's a lot harder. So.
Yeah, the one time I was in Calgary in September, it snowed. Let me see. So in my classes, I have done so many things with citizen science. And the great part about my job is that for the longest time, I was just a lecturer. Now I'm still just a teacher in the department. So I have much less oversight compared to the research faculty. And so also I have a very supportive admin. And so when I say I want to do some crazy stuff with citizen science, I go, yeah, okay, it's fine, go ahead. Plus, when I teach the non-majors course of, non-majors intro course, they really just say, do whatever you want to do. And so I've got to go and do some off the wall citizen science stuff. Within that class, what ultimately came out of it was 5 years of having students do 3 citizen science projects for microbiology and 3 for ecology. They then filled out a survey so we could figure out what students liked and didn't like. And we're going to be publishing a paper on those results in the special volume of Citizen Science Theory and Practice. What we found is that students like easy projects. It doesn't matter how interesting the project is. If it's easy to do, that's what they like the most. So keep that in mind. And then we also did a series of projects which I stacked together into an overall ecology module. And with this, we were studying single trees. We utilized Alan's Caterpillars Count project, divided the student groups up into individual trees. They monitored insects. They also monitored phenology, took characteristics of the tree in terms of height, and size and stuff for the grounds people on campus. And then we also looked at their bacterial composition, the leaves and the bark. We now have 3 years of data for that for both the spring and the fall on the barks and the leaves. And so that's really cool. I would love to be able to spread that around. And, so if any of you want to do microbiology on that stuff across all these universities, cool, let's do it. And then the other thing that I have done is I created an outreach course. So I'm very much into public outreach. And so I have a citizen science project called Shark Tooth Forensics, where students look at fossil shark teeth. And so I took a class of people who are minorities in STEM careers, which includes women, Black and brown students, and I taught them how to do outreach. And then we use my citizen science project to go to high schools that have very high populations of particularly low income Black and brown students. We specifically targeted those schools. And I was able to use my citizen science project with them in a way to kind of teach them how to do outreach, how to do education, what education really meant, and at the same time provide high school students with an opportunity to do a citizen science project that was completely outside of their curriculum, but then using the college students as role models for these at-risk youth. So as you think about doing citizen science in your classes, you can really think way outside the common box of just a simple activity to do here, a simple activity there. You can stack projects together to accomplish a much larger goal, because you guys doing microbiology projects, those are really great for the things that you can't see. And then you could stack that up with like insects, and then stack that up with other stuff. So the way I like to think about using citizen science in my class really is about trying to piece together the big picture, showing students what they can accomplish if they add in different aspects of science and not just sticking to one single thing.
Yeah, we actually surveyed instructors a year or so ago about how they were using citizen science in their courses. And the overwhelming message was that there's no wrong way. People are doing lots of different things with citizen science. The most common way in which instructors were having students interface with citizen science was through collecting data and submitting data to some national database. That was the most common usage, but there were instructors, who didn't do that part at all and just, use the existing data set to teach their students about analyzing data and graphing data or something. And then there's some instructors who, were using citizen science for a day or, a week, and others who their entire course was structured around it. There were some who had their students, ask independent questions and develop those from beginning to end and see them through, as a true research project, mixing the idea of like a course-based undergraduate research experience or a cure with citizen science. So the kind of the feedback that we got is that people see this as a very, very flexible approach that can be used in online and face-to-face settings with first-year students, first-year undergrads versus, upper level and grad students. It can be used in lots of different disciplines. And so, and the little bit of data we've been able to collect about assessment and the benefits of using it shows that it doesn't seem so far, at least, to be broken down by how people are using it. People, it seems to bring benefits to students, no matter how you're using it. And so hopefully I say that to relieve pressure on you in case you're trying to figure out like, what's the right way to do this? There is no right way. Whatever is right for you and your course circumstance is valuable, I think.
Yeah, I was going to pop in and echo that. I saw Alan's come in as well. Some people might look at my course design and say that citizen science assignment is a bit disjointed from the perspective that I don't spend a lot of time on water quality, or I don't spend a lot of time on microbial biology, but we're doing these type projects. But the vantage point I go from is from exposure. And so in this case, just exposing them to the opportunity for citizen science. And I don't know that Karen has done this work, but she talks a lot about helping students find a sense of belonging, especially since I have a lot of freshmen in my courses. So being able to create that kind of sense of community of we're all doing, well, when we were doing Delphia, like we're all doing something and feeding into something large. And I didn't state this earlier, but they were divided into groups of 3. And so they had to meet and decide where they thought the Delphia might be. So they were working in a group for that project. So, I agree with the comment of you could kind of just drop it in, or you could integrate it and come back and have them do data analysis. I think both approaches work well.
Yeah. Before I forget, David, up in the chat, Heather put in a link to my project on studentsdiscover.org. The real benefit of that, since you're trying to do K-12 modules, is that studentsdiscover.org and teaching modules, it has tons of different stuff for K-12 that already have citizen science projects produced. So, feel free to look through there as you wish for any kind of guidance. Maria, is there anything we can do for you in the last, I have allotted till 3:30. I don't know how much time you guys have.
I have another 10 minutes or so, but I have to meet with my student at 1:15. I guess I am trying to think about all of the activities that I've done in my courses, and I'm not sure if they are citizen science or not, because in the intro genetics that we do, the students actually check to see what what their genotype is for the taster. So we just do a quick PCR and restriction enzyme digest to check what allele they have. And recently I found this other gene that might be interesting for them to look at too, but I collect that data and I keep it. So I have, it's stripped, there's no names in the sheets or anything, but they can do a population genetics analysis and then compare it to what we know about the distribution of the alleles in the world. And they find it to be the same, which is really strange, especially for this part of Saskatchewan. But I guess it's interesting in that sense. And so I was thinking more along the lines of having some gene that might be of interest that they might want to look at, and what the alleles are like with just doing the basic experiments and not having to do sequencing. As Julie said, sequencing can get really expensive. And so if we can find a way to, if there are some polymorphisms, like larger ones, the deletion ones, then just a simple PCR, they get that experience of what a PCR, how it works, and then do a population genetics analysis. That's something that I'm considering right now, but I'm not sure where to start. And I'm sure I'll have to get all sorts of approval from all of the ethics people. So that's also a reason why I'm hesitating in terms of that. But the other course I teach is plant physiology. And the idea that I've gotten from here is trying to use maybe iNaturalist in there somehow. I do have them do a discussion forum where they're discussing indigenous ways of knowing plants, and the recent book that was published by oh man, now the name is Braiding. The book is called Braiding Sweetgrass. The author is escaping me, but that's indigenous author. She's a scholar and I think teaches at in New York as a botanist, and talks about how her PhD training and her indigenous training, how she thought they were different, but they're actually the same, just looking at plants in a different light. And so they do that, and they're asked to go out and observe plants. So using iNaturalist within that might be an example of something I could do in that case. But again, I don't want them to have to go through what many students went through. So now I'm sort of afraid. I'm not sure what to do. All of the ideas everywhere in my brain, just rattling around.
Yeah. So can I ask why you want to use citizen science?
I think I want them to see that it's cannot just be done in a lab. It's just around them. I think just knowing that they can use science in every different part of their life could be beneficial for them, but I've not fully made up my thoughts around that either. Sorry.
It is a complicated thing to think about. This is not the venue for that, but I have plenty of opinions. The whole idea of sequencing genetic material from students. Yeah, I don't quite know how that would go with IRBs. I mean, clearly it can be done because people have done it. You know, here at the museum in Raleigh, North Carolina, people sequence belly button. Actually, Julie sequenced belly button stuff. So they got IRB approval for all of that. I wouldn't be deterred if I were you.
Yeah, I mean, microbiome is a bit different, but yeah, getting their own DNA. That's why I don't want to do sequencing. I'm thinking of like discard the material and just a single gene that might be of interest. But I'm currently looking at the period pre gene, which has a large 50-something nucleotide deletion. So simple PCR will tell them what alleles they have. And that allele, that gene is associated with a lot of things that could be problematic, but also associated with being a morning or an evening person, or like a night owl kind of deal. So I thought that might be interesting for students to get interested in just thinking about genetic associations, and mostly the something that statistical making them more statistically inclined to think about data, correlation not being equal to causation, and all of those things that I wanted to bring into their thought process. So yeah, I definitely don't think that I want to go to get them to do 23andMe or anything like that. I don't, I think that's a little too much, asking them too much. But I think a single gene where they discard their own DNA, all they do is they do the PCR and then run it on the gel and then throw it away. So they're always only them handling the DNA, I think might be able to get the IRB not being too angry at me, or REB as we call it here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so do you three, actually, I'm curious, Maria, Mindy, and David, do y'all do any research?
I do have a small project. We're doing microbiome analysis on cockroaches, but just with undergrad, so just other projects. So I'm not sure how I could bring that into my research, but I don't know if all undergrads would like working with cockroaches, so that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my research focuses on, well, we have a plant pollinator project that works closely with the city of Calgary. So it's kind of one area. And then the other project is being digitization. So we've been doing a lot of two-dimensional digitization of our natural history collections. And now we just got some funding to be able to do 3D modeling. So I'm hoping to start students to be able to use those 3D models to ask research questions as part of courses as well. And then I publish in the education research literature is probably where most of my work has been the past few years.
Okay.
And yes, I have a number of research projects involving genomics and speciation in salamanders. Then I'm actually at Mountain Lake Biological Research Station for the summer, where I'm serving as a RU mentor, starting a new line of research with looking at population dynamics, sort of more ecology of salamanders.
Cool. Is there any way that you guys, I guess not with cockroaches, Maria, that you said, but the other two, can you all imagine bringing those into classes in more hands-on way?
Yeah, I certainly do that. Sort of have like a common thread through. So I'm at a community college, so I teach a lot of classes. So I think it's pretty common for students to maybe do a DNA extraction in Intro to Biology Part 1. And so we do that at my community college, but instead of just extracting DNA from a strawberry and dumping it down the sink at the end of class, we extract it from salamanders that we're actually going to do genomic work with later. So like, that's sort of the first part of it. And I teach a regional natural history class where the entire class is on 5 weekends, where we go camping across 5 weekends. And we collect the material. So some students that happen to be biology majors and take this series of classes sort of get to see a lot. I teach a biotechnology class and a genetics class. And so we do other things like PCR and DNA sequencing. So there's sort of this like common thread where the ones that took all of those classes sort of get to see all of the components. And I actually have a lot of students that present at some of our regional meetings, like North Carolina Academy of Science meeting and Association of Southeastern Biologists meeting.
Wow, really cool. And you're right over there in Nash County. I've heard great things about that community college from people.
Yeah, it's funny to pop in here and then see Heather and then Julie, who are both people I know and that are not far away from Nash Community College at all.
I know that some of you have to go, and while it's on my mind, Mindy, you were interested in community groups, interacting with them. Well, it turns out that we have one member that worked of the network that works on environmental justice. And so I think she's involved with a lot of local groups. North Carolina, Agriculture and Technology University, I think North Carolina A&T, whatever that stands for. They have a core group of citizen science workers there now who are trying to work with community groups. And so they just got started over the past year. I was hoping some of them could make it today, but unfortunately they were not able to. And then we also have someone else that had just crossed my mind. Oh, it was actually in relation to David's stuff, because we have a community college worker who's part of our steering committee, and he does a lot of work with people up in Michigan. He works with Michigan DOT and some other water quality community group because he can't have a research program. And so if you were interested, then we can put you in touch with all of them to get some advice on working with community groups.
That would be great. Yeah, I was really lucky. Our university just started this past year. One of the strategic goals is engaging more with the community. So it's been really nice. We have a knowledge engagement coordinator who has been really helping to make some of those connections, but it'd be wonderful to hear from the researcher's perspective, how kind of manage and choose partners and work with them. And also having students work with them as well, because I don't want to overload any of our community partners with like excited student requests as they come in.
Yeah, no, we can definitely do that now that we have your email.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This was such a great meeting.
Yeah, you're welcome. Talk to you again soon.
Thank you. So is everyone else able to put their contact information on that sheet? I don't know why I could not open it. I'm the only one who couldn't.
I think so.
Let me go back to it.
You see, David, were you able to? Oh yeah, it looks like everyone is in there.
Okay, maybe it was just me. Maybe I didn't copy the last little bit there. I don't know. Let me try it again.
David, did you have anything else that we can help you with?
Not particularly. This is an interesting subject to me. Like I said, so I both would be interested in sort of, I do a lot of teaching. And so like, how can I use some of these resources in bio majors courses at a community college, but also I'm also interested in what are the kind of things that I can do with my research that would actually make it accessible into something that could be used as sort of, citizen science. Like how could I contribute modules that could be used in that way?
That's really interesting. I wonder how easy it would be to get some extra funding from NSF to put on a few of these workshops, Heather, to have people come here for a week or 3 or 4 days to purposely make their research into citizen science projects.
Yeah, I'd be really interested in that.
Yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea how easy it'd be to get extra money, but we may be able to do that with some of the stuff we already have in place. Yeah, I have to figure out exactly the best way to do that. So for example, in a couple of years, we have some money set aside to actually pair instructors with existing community science, citizen science projects to create materials that could be used by others. This isn't quite that, though. This would be kind of creating a new project and then creating the materials to go with them. But yeah, there might be ways that we could actually swing that with money we already have. But if not, there are ways to ask for supplements. But I think that's generally, we may be able to do it if we say we're creating materials that could be used, for example, by K-12 instructors. Like there's specific supplements for that and things like that. I don't know, we'd have to look into the details.
So that's also kind of what I have a Burroughs Welcome Fund grant right now, which is actually about STEM career recruitment, where I have after school program and summer with students. Actually, the idea is to bring them out here to Mountain Lake. So it's that same thing, like, the funding is not actually to do that, it's to develop that program. The idea is that program could then be rolled out at other, particularly at community colleges. The specific target of it is, like most of the Burroughs Welcome money is usually gone to like the big universities, and they want to expand their reach into rural areas, and there's no big universities in there. So that's why reached out to me because I'm like one of the only community college people that ever had applied to any of their stuff and said, hey, would you, be interested in developing this thing? And so it really is this K-12 thing. And the idea is that, I'm going to do it with some group of K-12 students somewhere in the Nash County kind of area, but it's supposed to be something that other groups could do in other places. If it's Bros Welcome, it's specifically targeted at North Carolina, but it doesn't mean that it couldn't be rolled out, in other states.
Yep. Well, good for you getting Bros Welcome.
Yeah, thanks. And I did just got signed up onto your sheet.
Okay. Fabulous.
Yeah, I finally got on. I must have just been copying. I must have missed the very end or something. Sorry. I was concerned because I was like, I can't get on there, but just me. Sorry. Great. Well, it was good to see you, Dave. It's been a while.
Yeah, no, I've seen Dave a couple of times here and there, but it's been a long time since I've seen you.
Yep. I think I saw you at a distance at the last CSA meeting in Raleigh.
No.
But yeah, I didn't actually get to chat with you then. So, and your son must be, is he a teenager now?
Yeah, he'll be 20 in August. Yeah.
Time goes by.
It's been a long time, it seems.
For sure. Yeah, it was great. His son, even as a little kid, would follow him out in streams and catch salamanders. It was great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, all right, you guys. I got a lecture to make for tomorrow.
Yep. Well, it was nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you guys. We'll be in touch again in a little bit.
Yeah,
Good to
sounds
see you
good.
again. Enjoy your summer at Mountain Lake. Here's beautiful.
It's almost over.
Yeah.
Couple more weeks.
I'm in denial about that.
Yeah. All right. See you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.